Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the truly incredible work of Daniel P. Brown. He was a clinical psychologist and really one of the very few Western scholars out there capable of reading original Tibetan source texts at a highly technical level. What we're going to trace today is a specific, absolutely fascinating transition. We'll look at how his rigorous academic translations evolved into direct, real-time retreat instruction, what exactly gets lost in translation along the way, and how he ingeniously fixed it. Okay, let's dive into this. Look, if you've spent any time at all in Western meditation or Buddhist communities, you have almost certainly heard phrases exactly like these. Just rest, simply be, return to your natural state. And sure, while these translated phrases are pointing to something real, if you actually try to follow them while you're sitting on the cushion, you might find yourself with practically nothing to work with. You try to just rest, and you know what happens? You just end up sitting there, waiting for something to click. So what's the deal here? Why do these seemingly simple instructions usually fail? Well, if you've ever felt frustrated by this, let me just validate that for a second. The problem usually isn't that you're doing it wrong. The reality is that the instruction traveled a very long way from its origin to get to you, and it lost something fundamentally structural in the journey. Daniel P. Brown realized early on that he couldn't just hunt for better dictionary translations. He literally had to find a completely different way to transmit what those ancient words originally meant. Section 1. The Grammar of the Self. How language smuggles in an ego. To really understand the root of the issue, we have to look closely at language itself. The problem actually lies right in the invisible assumptions encoded directly into English grammar. Think about it. English is organized around a subject, a verb, and an object. You settle into your natural state. Our language literally forces an entity, a you, to exist first and then perform an action. But Tibetan technical language is structured completely differently, using something called apposition. Terms are just placed side by side. It names simultaneous processes from different angles. There are no causal links and absolutely no active agent initiating them. And this brilliantly illustrates why English is sometimes the absolute worst vehicle for these concepts. Let's look at a concrete example that Brown actually mapped out in his doctoral dissertation. Consider the original Tibetan term rongbabs. The precise technical definition is the continuum settling of itself. It's a process stopping without an active agent. Imagine a disturbed pool of water. It goes perfectly still precisely because you stopped touching it. You didn't still the water, right? You simply stopped interfering. Contrast this incredibly precise meaning with the flawed English translation, just rest. Just rest keeps a subject firmly in place. It implies a controller, a you, actively making the choice to relax. And this is a massive, fundamental, structural stumbling block. Because of its very nature, English grammar reinstates the exact active agent, the exact ego or self that these Tibetan teachings are actively trying to examine and loosen. When we translate a term like rang rig to self-awareness or rung drawl to self-liberation, we are keeping an active subject right squarely in the center of the frame. It suggests a self is turning attention back on itself or that a self is performing the liberation. It literally contradicts the core goal of the practice, all because of invisible English grammar. Moving on to Section 2, from academic to retreat, a shift in transmission. Now, Brown's doctoral dissertation was a highly rigorous piece of philological analysis. It was brilliant. But he quickly realized that knowing technical terms in a university setting doesn't automatically make those teachings operable for a Westerner sitting on a retreat cushion. So picture this. It's 1986, and his entire perspective shifted. The Dalai Lama actually arranged for him to meet a wandering lama. And in a single, intense, 6-hour session, this lama demonstrated a direct pointing out style. He guided Brown through a complex practice with real-time checks, which led to a sustained recognition of awakened awareness. It was a total game changer. It proved to Brown just how incredibly effective direct, relational instruction could be. And you know, this experience perfectly aligned with the Dalai Lama's perspective on Western learners. The classical monastic model relies on years and years of rigorous textual preparation before any transmission actually happens. But Westerners were already accustomed to a very different tradition: psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is strongly relational and it's corrective in real time. So the big insight here was that Western students respond far, far better to a real-time relational teaching style than to sitting for years reading a classical monastic text. Section 3. The Relational Shift. Finding Functional Equivalence. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Brown actually adapted to this. To make this relational shift work, he realized he had to drop the heavy technical Tibetan vocabulary during his retreats. Instead of literal translations that just get caught in those English grammar traps we talked about, he developed functional English replacements. Instead of commanding you to do something, he used incredibly vivid metaphors, ocean-like changeless awareness viewing its own waves, or the gaze of a lion taking in everything without fixing on any particular point, or even concentration cruise control. These phrases are specifically constructed to carry the actual instruction while completely sidestepping the English subject-verb problem. There's no you required to perform an action here. Section 4. The Invisible Diagnostic Skeleton. The Academic Map Beneath the Retreat. But here is the really crucial part. That rigorous academic work from his dissertation, it didn't vanish when he started using metaphors and retreats. Not at all. It became an invisible diagnostic skeleton beneath his teachings. Brown used his technical background to map out a highly precise sequence. Step 1, concentration training. Step 2, investigating the sense of self. Step 3, recognition of awareness. And Step 4, stabilization. By deeply internalizing this scholarly map, Brown could accurately place a student's exact experience. He could prevent them from mistaking adjacent, similar feeling states for the real thing. So, why does this level of diagnostic precision matter so much? Because it's highly practical. Thanks to his deep academic background, Brown could reliably tell the difference between mere spaciousness and true awakening. He could distinguish between just feeling ordinary calm and actually experiencing automatic emptiness. He could listen to a student in a retreat and say, nope, that marker you're describing won't hold. Spaciousness isn't the right sign here. That kind of highly specific, real-time correction relies entirely on a teacher knowing the underlying map in profound scholarly detail. And finally, Section 5. Building the vessel first. Context is everything. This brings us full circle, right back to our original problem. Think back to that first instruction, just rest. In the traditional context, that instruction only appears well along in the sequence, way after concentration is developed and the sense of self is thoroughly examined. So the crucial point is this: if just rest is actually an advanced instruction, what foundational steps are you skipping in your own practice? True understanding isn't just about trying harder. It requires understanding the invisible grammar of our own minds and following a reliable map to build the vessel first. Something to think about next time you sit down on the cushion.